Every one of you is in the exact right place for what you're looking for today. I promise you. I have taught this class. My goal in 2015 was to teach this class 12 times. So I decided I wanted to be the best in the world at teaching this class. I just decided that in June of 2014. And so the first time I taught it, wide scale, I taught it probably 5 times in my own market center when I was the team leader in Fargo. And I was telling Lourdes, this was the biggest class size I ever had in my own market center, teaching it. And then I decided I wanted to expand that and teach that in other places. So the first place I taught it outside of my own market center was in Baltimore, Maryland. And that was in July of 2014. And since then, I've been in Baltimore, back to Annapolis. I've been in San Diego and Trumbull, Connecticut, and Las Vegas, and 5 times in the Minneapolis area. I actually taught it in the Fargo Market Center the December 4th, not as the team leader anymore, and it was amazing. There were a lot more people there. So you're never a prophet in your own hometown, I'm learning. And I want to be the best in the world at teaching this class because I love this class so much. And I take 0 credit for the writing of this course. It was written by people within Keller Williams, and it was under the direction of Gary Keller himself, because he believed this was the foundational class everybody should take before they do anything else. And I fully back that up. And I think you'll find that as we go through this course today, this will become a really valuable resource for you. So please don't make your shelf the smartest shelf in the world by just putting it on the shelf after the class. There's a lot of things we're going to be working on today. There will be a lot of thinking time for you. There will be time to talk in pairs and groups, because we find that helping each other see what you can't see for yourself is a really important part of this course. And has anybody taken this course before? So all of us are new. This is so awesome, because this you will find is just going to be such a fun day. And I'm not setting us up for anything, I'm not saying more than it's going to produce, because I promise you I've been getting that feedback everywhere I've been teaching it. So I'm from Fargo, North Dakota. Have lived there forever. I'm from North Dakota originally. Not lived in Fargo my whole life, but the state is a pretty large state geographically, and have traveled all over that state. I just really love this course. So as I told you before, this is not a nuts and bolts course. This is foundational. When you build your foundation to be very strong, you can pile anything else on top of it. Whether that's real estate, whether that's mortgage, whether that's car dealership, it doesn't matter. This class will help anybody in any of those areas. So even your 16-year-old, you might be able to go back and share some of this with her and with other people in your lives. I know that at least getting the information will be helpful. They won't get the experience you will have had at the end of the day by going through it, but it's still great information. So Gary Keller used to start every class with this, or everything he taught with this class. And you'll see on page, I guess if it were numbered, it would be page 7. There's a box on the bottom. And by the way, I will follow the slides as much as I can, but once in a while I'll get carried away and we'll move on to something else that's not related to the slides. So just know that might happen. So these are the 6. These are what people who have achieved great things in their careers. Gary Keller did some research and found out this is what he realized was that had in common. It was about mindset, attitudes, and approach to life. And you'll see that graphic right in your book. But on the bottom, there's a box with a story in it. Would anybody be willing to read that story to us? Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Gary has said, when you interview the very top people and ask them what their biggest challenge is, invariably they will tell you this mindset. Keeping it strong, focused, and positive amid the many challenges they encounter every day on their way to the top. Gary continues, life is an inside to the outside experience. When you get this at a deep level, you realize who you are inside determines and drives what you are outside. The very best achievers know this, and therefore truly work on and protect their mindset.
So when you heard Dan read that, was there anything that jumped out at you that you felt was really important? Because you might want to underline or highlight anything. What did you hear there that was really important, Lourdes?
Focus.
Focus, yeah, everybody hears that word. Focus.
Work on, and then even more importantly, protect their mindset.
Protect their mindset. So not only work on it, but protect it. Because there will be outside forces that are going to want to pull you off track. So that's really important. Yeah.
I think it comes back to a decision on you know, we're emotional beings, and we have tendency to open up the door and let something that's going on the outside in that's going to affect our insides. And I think it's that, I think it's becoming a little bit more cognizant of what's happening and not letting that, and being more of a gatekeeper, I guess, not letting that stuff on the end that's going to affect your mindset.
Because he says it's an
And your focus.
inside to the outside experience, right?
Yeah.
So if we're allowing those outside influences to affect us, then that's where we're going to find ourselves having to determine what's really important. You said the word decision, and that word is really important, and I'm learning from many sources that that word is key. I've studied the book Think and Grow Rich since 2007, and I've been facilitating groups studying that book in groups of 10 for 8 weeks, and I've got about 650 people over those years that have studied it with me. And one of the chapters in that book that Napoleon Hill discovered was decision, because people are really bad at that. And the word decision, decide, comes from the same root as suicide, pesticide, and homicide. It means to kill off the other options. And so often we don't do that. We don't decide. You know, did your parents tell you don't put all your eggs in one basket? Or make sure you have a backup plan? Well, because we're not taught to go all in. We're taught to
Who's the author of that?
get Napoleon Hill. And I do have a handout for you later today that has my reading list on it. Not that I'm any authority, but I read a lot. So I will get you that list as we go today as well.
I've heard of that, but didn't know it was Napoleon
So
Hill
good.
that actually had that in the book.
Yep.
I've heard that book.
So that book is foundational, written in 1937. Again, those principles are principles. And when you hear a principle, you nod your head because principles outlast any time-bound issues. This is a principle. These 6 perspectives are similar. Gary realized by studying the top achievers, these 6 principles are what they did. So it's not, you know, telling you by command. It's saying if you want to be like these people, you'll do the things that they've done. So that's why this is an important way to start. Now, when you, I have some goals and commitments for you today too. I'll just let you know that by the end of today, for one thing, you made it out of the blizzard, and that is a reward in itself. We're going to have fun today. But by the end of the day, you will have a picture of the mindset and the attitudes of those high achievers and how you are experiencing your own mindset right now. You'll have a picture of that. You'll have better awareness. What does it take to do what you say you want to do? You will feel how it really feels to open your mind up, to get rid of old beliefs, and to empower you to live the life by design, not by default. So this is very similar to BOLD, if you've experienced BOLD. If you've not, that's something you might want to consider. It's very powerful, and we'll talk about that as we go too. If you want different results in your life, you need to be a different person, because it's who you be that determines what you do. And if I was telling Lourdes this morning, there was a guy at my hotel at breakfast who was, I think, trying to engage me in conversation this morning. But I was sitting here having breakfast, and he was sitting over here. And the one thing that I heard him say when the Today Show was on, he said, "Oh, there's Matt Liar." And I thought, oh, what do I do with that? He wants to engage me in negative, you know, yeah, I know, Matt Liar, isn't that true? Because don't we do that? We think the way we can bond with people is to, you know, attract or become who they are. And I didn't say anything, but I really thought about it. And I could tell, since it was just the two of us, he really wanted to get me involved. So he's reading the paper, and then he started talking about the economy and the politics, and I thought, wow. And if I had not been aware, I might have fallen into that. Or I might have tried to coach him. Now, people don't want to be coached. Don't coach people who don't want to be coached. Because you know what happens when you do that? You create resistance.
You push them further away.
You do. In fact, Diane, would you put your hand up like this? I'm going to push against your hand. Diane, holy, can you see?
Oh, yeah.
I said, I'm going to push against
Yeah.
your hand. I didn't ask you to push.
Right, you're right.
Did you think about it?
No, I just did it.
I just did it. It was just an automatic reaction. And so when we feel pushed upon, we automatically push back. We don't even think about it. And if we think we're going to create some kind of relationship that comes together by pushing something on somebody else, all we're creating is more resistance. And over time, if I'm a coach who needs to coach everybody to be great and wonderful, they're gonna run screaming from that push. Whether that's your kids making their bed, I mean, whatever it is, they're gonna run. And so it's much more effective to invite people than to push them. Even when you get new ideas and you're excited and you wanna share it with people, consider how you're doing that. It's who you be that creates the results, not even necessarily what you do, because your doing comes from your being. Does that make sense?
Should we always avoid negative talk though? Because aren't sometimes, we have to talk about negativity?
So talk about, tell me more about what you're...
Well, you're watching on the news, 14 or how many people getting gunned down in San Bernardino, California. I agree that, it's not good to sit there and watch, continual news coverage for 7 days. But, shouldn't there be some discourse, or you watch a political candidate, we have an election coming up. Unfortunately, it's starting now.
Mhm.
But, shouldn't there be discourse about what people are talking about, and some of that is a lot of it, in fact, is going to be negative.
Mhm. So here's what I would say. We are good at discussion in our lives. We say we're going to have a discussion about the two sides, but discussion, the very word, comes from the same root as percussion and concussion. So when I discuss, I'm going to push my idea on you. And what I would ask you is, how is what you're currently doing working to get the result you want? And if the result you want is for everybody else to see the world the way I see it, that's one thing. And I learned this from a KW class that I took called Fierce Conversations. This is diverting a little bit, but do you remember this part of the Fierce Conversations? Dan, if you took this, there was a beach ball conversation that they talked about, and that was so profound to me that I created my own little visual for that. If I believe my way is the way, my way is the way, my truth is the truth, I'm going to be on the red stripe, let's say. That's the way I was raised, it's what I believe, it's the Vikings are the best football team, and if you believe the Packers are, then we're going to have a fight. Sometimes we get that fixed mindset. And if I believe my way is the only way, and I'm asking for a discussion or a conversation, but I don't make you feel comfortable to share with me, then you're going to be like some of the corporate environments you've probably been in, where you're in the conference room and the boss says, "Do we all agree?" And you all say, "Yeah." And you walk out of the room, and the boss thinks everything's great, and everybody else is going, "What a jerk, man, you didn't even listen to me." Because if I'm fixed, I'm not allowing you to share your perspective. That's dialogue. That's not discussion. And dialogue is suspending previous assumptions for the purpose of learning from each other.
So there's kind of a line you have to walk between authenticity.
I think there is.
And fixed.
I think there is. For me, what I got from this spot right here on the end of the beach ball, where you blow it up normally if it weren't a squishy ball, it's white. If you notice on every beach ball, or most beach balls you see, it's white. And white is the place in the spectrum where all the colors come together. So I have this theory, and I'm calling it invite to the white. And it's my responsibility as the leader, if I have a title or whatever, if I'm the leader of the discussion, to invite you. I want to hear your green perspective. I want to hear your pink. I want to hear your blue. And if I'm not inviting people to come to the dialogue, then I'm only having a discussion. So I can tell you, Donald Trump's a jerk! And you're going to either agree or not, and we're going to have this stalemate. And if we agree, then now we have 2 against the world.
Yeah.
And then we gain more, and now we're 4 against the world. And all we're doing is pushing our idea on somebody else. Instead of going, how might I invite to the white? Even in this kind of conversation, dialogue is just suspending previous assumptions. Suspending. You can pick them up on the way out. But suspending previous assumptions in order to learn from each other. And now I have to be okay with, maybe I was wrong. Oh my gosh, maybe red isn't the way it is. I have to be willing to be a little vulnerable in my outlook, because maybe you have a point that I hadn't considered. But if I'm set in my way, I'm going to discount whatever you said because it didn't go with what I already believed.
You really pre-stuck both your grows.
Exactly. So consider that possibility. I always talk about inviting rather than pushing. So yes, absolutely. And if you are Mother Teresa one time was asked, how is it that you're so driven to help those kids in Calcutta? And she said, I'm not driven, I'm compelled. There's a difference. If I'm driven, I have to. It's a push. But if I'm compelled, I can't not. And if you're compelled to speak out against something, or I would ask you to consider what you speak for rather than what you speak against. Because if what happens when we get to the polls next November is that everybody who listened to TV but didn't really get engaged in the dialogue of it gets to the polls and says, well, I don't really know who I'm going to vote for, but I heard a lot about this Donald Trump, so maybe I'll just vote for Donald Trump because it's the word I've heard so much. And I'm not saying that he's right, wrong, good, bad, but if that's all we hear is what we don't like, and we keep bringing up, and I could use anybody's name, you know, that Tom Smith is such a jerk. Tom Smith, don't you think Tom Smith is a jerk. Tom Smith is so stupid. Tom Smith doesn't know anything. Then we get to the polls and all we've heard for months is Tom Smith, and you're like, well, I recognize that name, so I'm going to vote for him. Because we're so good at yelling about what we don't like instead of talking about what we do like and what we do stand for. So yes, by all means, if you're compelled to speak about something, speak about what you do believe. And in that way, we will create a whole new energy around shift. And I would say it's not even change, it's transformation. There's a huge difference. And we can talk about that throughout the day too. That's not part of the class, but it's what I will bring to you. So yes, speak when you have something to say that goes toward something.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this morning, when you got up and brushed your teeth and got ready to go, you saw in the mirror the only person keeping you from your dreams. And tonight, when you go home and brush your teeth before you go to bed and look in the mirror, you're going to see the only person responsible for getting you to those dreams. It will look like the same person, but with what we're going to work on today, you might find there's a shift that happens. And it'll be all me. Not even you, me. That's why I love this class so much. When you guys know this from being at Keller, however long you've been here, the best way to learn something is to do it and to teach it. So, well, yay me, selfishly. So, are you ready to dig in?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a monitor over there. Clinton's going to be our room monitor for the temperature. So if we get too cold,
Specialty.
Okay.
so just
I'll advocate.
we're such a small group. This is going to be interactive, and you guys just we'll take a break when we need a break, and we'll just let it go as it goes. Okay. So we talked about Gary and how he believes this is important. So these are the 6 perspectives we're going to be talking about today. This is on page 9 of your manual, and you'll notice that there's a blank in your manual to the right of each of these perspectives. I'm just going to introduce these to you and give you a little mantra that you might consider as we go through them. Don't worry if you don't understand the language yet. It'll come as we talk. So the first one is commit to self-mastery. Commit to self-mastery. And the mantra you might consider is, I am going to nail it. I'm going to master this. So write that on the line next to this graphic. I am going to nail it. I'm going to master this. This is a nice little reminder to yourself about what self-mastery means. And the second perspective is commit to the 80-20 principle. And the one thing you might want to notice before we even get to this one is that the word commit starts the first 2 perspectives. And I believe, this is Jody talking, not the manual, I believe that's what's missing in the world is commitment. I think we have a whole lot of intention. And intention is, I'm going to do whatever it takes until, squirrel, something else comes along. We have really good intentions about doing things. And intention is doing what you say you will do until something else comes along. And you know what they say about the road to hell. Paved with good intentions. I intended to, oh man, I was going to go to the gym. I intended to do that. And then you didn't. And so it's great to have great intentions. The difference is commitment. And commitment is doing what you say you will do even when the emotion you set it in wears off. And that's when we make a decision, right? We kill off the other options. And when we commit That's the distinction. So notice that that word starts the first two of these. And when we commit to the 80-20, again, we're going to talk about that. We'll describe what that means. But that is, I'm going to focus on my big rocks. You might have heard what that means before. We'll go through that story so you'll know exactly what that is. I am going to focus on my big rocks. Matt, do you want a book?
No.
Because you can follow along with us.
I'm more just making sure the video keeps going.
Okay, good.
But I appreciate it, thank you.
You're going to get subliminal information, though.
That's what I'm working on.
Like everybody else who's going to watch this.
I'm still stuck on this side is based on homicide, pesticide, suicide.
Yeah.
That's still ringing around in my
Isn't that
head.
weird?
Yeah.
You got
And I love that, to kill off every other decision. That's just
Kill off
so,
every other option.
I like that.
Okay, so commit to the 80-20. Next one is move from E to P. What the heck is E to P? We're going to move from entrepreneurial to purposeful. That's what those will mean. We'll get to that. The first one right after lunch. And that says, I am purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. I am purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. I'm doing what I'm doing on purpose, not by accident. I'm purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. And the next one, I know you're all in the right place because you're already doing this. Make being learning-based the foundation of your action plan. And that mantra is, I am willing to be taught. I always pursue learning. I am willing to be taught. I always pursue learning. Step 5, in the last couple weeks I've been teaching this class, has gotten a lot of attention. We've talked a lot about this one, which has been really fun. It's removing your limiting beliefs. And if you knew better, you'd do better. So for a lot of us, we don't know what those limiting beliefs are. We're going to talk about that this afternoon. And that is, I unlimit my thinking and my success. I unlimit my thinking and my success. We'll talk about this too, but the 10 two-letter words that'll blow your mind are, if it is to be, it is up to me. And that's where we get into be accountable. It's mine. I own it. It's mine. I own it. So those are the perspectives. So we're going to watch a video just to set us up as we determine for ourselves, what do I really want to accomplish before I die? What is really important to me in my life? And this video, I think, will give you a foundation. And I want to make sure Clinton's here for this because I don't want him to miss this. This is really powerful. It's only 7 minutes long. So we don't want to have to recreate that for him. But I'm going to ask you as we go, whenever we read through some little paragraph, I'm going to ask you to highlight or underline things because I want to know how that impacted you. This is not a lecture course. This is like, okay, what did you hear? How did you like that? What did you think? Did you agree? Did you disagree? This is all about how we can dialogue together as we go. So this video is it's short. And I want to encourage you to write down things that you want to remember about this because I want to know what's important about this video to you as we go through it. Yeah.
Rewind a second.
Yeah, sure.
You said something earlier that really resonated with me, that we're not taught to go all in. But, it very much is to be true. Is there anything that you've read or that really speaks to that you'd recommend?
Yeah, probably a lot of things.
Yeah.
I could think of, I have a list, and if I would go through the list, I could tell you. For me, I think, I can just tell you my experience. I was a basketball player in college.
Yeah.
And so I learned throughout that process that you don't get credit for just showing up.
Yeah.
And so it's a little different for me in that you make a decision and you go.
Yeah, because that's the whole mind shift.
yeah.
Or mindset shift.
Right.
For, I think, you know.
And I think our parents did the best they knew when they said, you know, I know you love music, but you better have a backup plan, so why don't you be an accountant? Or get a degree in accounting so that you can do your little music or paint your pictures. And I think they were doing the best they knew. They wanted better for us than they might have had for themselves. So I don't think there's any harm or danger, or, you know, nobody did anything on purpose. But what are we doing now when we're saying, well, you know, yeah, if this doesn't work, then I'll just do that?
Do you think it's maybe like just learning to overcome fear is part of
Well,
that?
I think fear, that's a great segue into a really great conversation about fear. What do you guys think, what do you all think about fear? Because fear, man, it's so limiting. And what are you afraid of? What fears are keeping you stuck?
Oh, for me, it's an imperfection.
Ah, so you're a perfectionist. Well, welcome to the world of recovering perfectionism. It doesn't work. And that's part of it. I'm worried about messing up. Gary Keller did a talk at Family Reunion, I think probably in 2012. You can look it up, it's on YouTube. And it was all about failing forward. And he said, we will never accomplish anything if we're not willing to fail. And he did this whole talk, like an hour-long talk, about failing forward. So there's nothing noble about playing small so that you can not fail. There's a lot of knots in that. It's just, it's yes, and that's a shift we have to make for ourselves. The reality is there's only two kinds of fear in the whole world. One is authentic fear, where your physical survival is at stake. You know, there's a bear running after you in the woods. Well, we're made for that because we get adrenaline and all this stuff happens to us. It's a fight or flight. That's authentic fear, and we're made for that. Okay, so that's good, a good thing for us. But everything that doesn't threaten your physical survival is inauthentic. It's not even real. We've made it up in our minds that it's going to be bad. Public speaking is number one fear of people because why? I don't know. Somebody will say something, or somebody will think, or I'll make a mistake. And then what? And then what? There are so many books about that. Brené Brown has written a lot of books about vulnerability. Daring Greatly, The Gifts of Imperfection, Rising Strong are three great books. People connect with you so much more when you recover from a mistake than if you don't make one. You know, think about your businesses. When something hasn't worked the way it's supposed to work, when you recover from that or when you're honest about that, that's when they connect with you. Not when you're perfect.
You know, it's funny because I noticed that so much in my 5-year-old with frustration that when things aren't going right or she's not getting something right. But it's only, and that's only because she had to get that from somewhere.
So then you notice it in yourself. Your
Yeah.
kids are your best teachers, you guys.
Yeah. So it's like I know that I need to, we need to fix that in ourselves, and in order to be able to teach that to, go for it. It's okay not to get it right, but it's what you want to do is make sure you're trying to get better.
Right. There's a song, speaking of your child, I'm going to write it down for you over here. It's called Flowers Are Red by Harry Chapin. And if I can find it, I'll play it for you later. Sad, sad song, but it's about that. I'll play it for you over a break. So I'm glad you're back, Clinton. Didn't want you to miss this video.
I'm sorry. I
No,
had
that's
to take
okay.
a call.
That's good. So this video is going to set us up for the rest of the day because there will be some ideas in this video that will propel you. And so if you want to take notes, you've got a lot of pages to take notes. What is important to you after you hear Rick Elias's video? So we'll just let Rick go. And I'm hopeful that we have sound. It's leaving. So I have to do something if we don't have sound.
Isn't it the top, the long one that turns
The
on
long
the
one.
audio? I think, is that right, Clint?
I like that.
The The soundbar should be connected.
He said if it's sitting
Sitting
idle for a while, I have to turn it back on.
Yeah, it said that it was on.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so we should be able to hear him now.
Yeah.
So imagine a big explosion as you climb through 3,000 feet. Imagine a plane full of smoke. Imagine an engine going clack, 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 clack. Sounds scary. Well, I had a unique seat that day. I was sitting in 1D. I was the only one who could talk to the flight attendants. So I looked at them right away, and they said, no problem. We probably hit some birds. The pilot had already turned the plane around, and we weren't that far. You could see Manhattan. 2 minutes later, 3 things happen at the same time. The pilot lines up the plane with the Hudson River. It's usually not the route. He turns off the engines. Now imagine being on a plane with no sound. And then he says 3 words, as unemotional 3 words I've ever heard. He says, brace for impact. I didn't have to talk to the flight attendant anymore. I could see in her eyes, it was terror. Life was over. Now I want to share with you 3 things I learned about myself that day. I learned that it all changes in an instant. We have this bucket list, we have these things we want to do in life, and I thought about all the people I wanted to reach out that I didn't, all the fences I wanted to mend, all the experiences I wanted to have and I never did. As I thought about that, later on I came up with a saying, which is, I collect bad wines. Because if the wine is ready and the person is there, I'm opening it. I no longer want to postpone anything in life. And that urgency, that purpose has really changed my life. The second thing I learned that day, and this is as we clear the George Washington Bridge, which was by not a lot, I thought about, wow, I really feel one real regret. I've lived a good life. In my own humanity and mistakes, I've tried to get better at everything I tried. But in my humanity, I also allow my ego to get in. And I regretted the time I wasted in things that did not matter with people that matter. I thought about my relationship with my wife, with my friends, with people. And after, as I reflected on that, I decided to eliminate negative energy from my life. It's not perfect, it's a lot better. I've not had a fight with my wife in 2 years, it feels great. I'm no longer trying to be right. I choose to be happy. The third thing I learned, and this is as your mental clock starts going 15, 14, 13, you can see the water coming. I'm saying, please blow up. Right? I don't want this thing to break in 20 pieces like you've seen in those documentaries. And as we're coming down, I had a sense of, wow, dying is not scary. It's almost like we've been preparing for it our whole lives. But it was very sad. I didn't want to go. I love my life. And that sadness really framed in one thought, which is, I only wish for one thing. I only wish I could see my kids grow up. About a month later, I was in a performance by my daughter, first grader, not much artistic talent. Yet. And I'm bawling, I'm crying like a little kid. And it made all the sense in the world to me. I realized at that point, by connecting those 2 dots, that the only thing that matters in my life is being a great dad. Above all, the only goal I have in life is to be a good dad. I was given the gift of a miracle of not dying that day. I was given another gift, which was to be able to see into the future and come back and live differently. I challenge you guys that are flying today. Imagine the same thing happens on your plane, and please don't. But imagine, and how would you change? What would you get done that you're waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever? How would you change your relationships and the negative energy in them? And more than anything, are you being the best parent you can? Thank you.
So, what'd you hear? that meant something to you from Rick's story.
Be purposeful.
To be purposeful. What does that mean to you, Lisa?
It's not about building business, it's about, having a purpose, and my purposefulness is helping others.
Okay.
And, trying to make others happy and have a purpose as well. So if we all have a purpose, then we work better together.
If we all have a purpose, we work better together. Be purposeful. Thank you, that's awesome. Anybody else? Yeah, Lourdes.
No longer be right.
He said, I'm choosing to be happy, not to be right. Sometimes we get stuck in being right even when we're not accurate.
I'm always told I'm always wrong.
So, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you. What else?
I think, that choose to be happy is so powerful because you have so many, and not even the big moments in life, but you have so many little moments in life where you choose to just blow a gasket over something, or, you know, and you have to be right. I mean, you know, the plate, you know, you're at a restaurant, the plate comes in, there's a hair in your food, and you know, you want to, you know, it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I'm not going to eat the hair, but hey, can you just, you know, can I get a fresh one? You know, and, you know, yeah, I'll still pay my bill, and I'll still tip you and all that, and life is good, you know?
You know, the difference in what you said was, I choose.
Yeah.
You said, you choose to be happy. And happiness is unconditional. There's no condition that needs to happen when you really get that on a deep level. So, cool, thank you. Clinton, you were going to say something?
Well, the one thing that hit me on there, and it's part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, is about him seeing his kids grow up. And I think about that. I think about John Prescott during Bold was telling the story about this guy that had gained a lot of weight, and his problem was that he was having a lot of health issues and things like that, but he had little kids, and he talked about his kids and what would happen, you know, if he continues this path of gaining weight as he was versus doing something about it. And he was talking about, well, somebody else would parent my kids and so forth. And that's that guy's story. Well, that hit me pretty hard, given the fact that about 3 months ago we found out that we're pregnant.
Oh.
And so we have a little one coming, and I'm 45, and having a baby at this age and thinking 20 years in the future, graduation, 65, you know, and all that stuff, your mind kind of goes. And I thought, okay, well, I've got to do something now that's going to affect that. So that's why I've started waking up at 4 in the morning and exercising first thing. I've got to make changes. So. Yeah.
And something, I want to talk about this right now. This is another diversion since we have a small class. Consider, I'm not saying this is true, this is my opinion. You said I want to make changes. Consider the distinction between change and transformation. Transformations would say. Change is dependent upon the past. It has to be. Because it has you look backwards and say, I don't like this, so I have to do something about it. And I have to change it. So change usually involves an ER word. I want to become better, faster, stronger, lighter, something-er. And so change requires you to take the past and do something with it. Where transformation has nothing to do with the past. It has everything to do with today, right now. It doesn't matter what I've done in the past. It doesn't matter if I've been broke, if I've been bankrupt, if I've been a billionaire. None of that matters today, right now, because what I'm doing going forward is going to transform my results. And I think if we are, and not that there's right or wrong with either of them, this occurred to me when I traded my 2008 Honda CR-V for a 2013 in July this year. So I had an 8, I loved it, it was great, I loved the car, and I drove it 179,000 miles. And The dealership said, we don't think we can ever give you a better trade than we would give you right now. And we're looking for your car, we want it, whatever, blah, you know what they tell you. And I believed them and said, okay, so I want a 15. What I told them was I want a 15. I want a 2015 that's used, that has a few miles on it. I don't want a brand new car. And they said, well, they don't exist yet, because there aren't people who have turned in a 15 yet. And I said, well, that's what I really want. And he said, well, we've got this 13, and it's really great. It's got a 25,000 miles on it, it's got a warranty, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I really want the 15, but since you're giving me the good trade today, I'll take the 13, knowing that this is a transitional vehicle. I want the 15. Okay, worked it out. So I'm driving the 15, and the 13, and I never really like it this summer. I'm driving it this summer. And it occurs to me, I'm driving, and the back window, I don't know if you're a Honda, I'm a Honda weirdo, but the back window of the 8 was big, so when I looked in the rearview mirror, I couldn't see it, you know, because it was wide enough or tall enough. But my 13, I could see the bottom of the rearview mirror, the bottom of the window in the rearview mirror, and it kind of bugged me. I don't know why.
It obstructs your view.
Well, it kind of does, because I'm looking back, but then it occurred to me, why am I focused so much on that rearview mirror? I'm not going there. And it just was like, duh, I'm going forward. So it just stopped bugging me. It's really weird. And what happened now is I found my 15. I'm so excited. I found my 15. I just traded last week. I gotta get home to drive it. But I got my 15 that I wanted, and the rearview mirror doesn't even occur to me. I'm not going there. So change is kind of like taking change for a quarter. I mean, like if I had a quarter, and I said, Diane, could you give me change for a quarter? What could you give me?
2 times.
Okay, 2 times a nickel. So I give you 1 coin, you give me 3, and we call that change, but nothing's really changed. I don't like that, so I'm going to give you, Linda, my 2 dimes and a nickel. What could you give me?
Pennies.
So 25, now I'm giving 1 coin for 3, now 3 for 25. I'm really just getting more of the same and heavier pockets. But nothing's really changing. I have to be willing to give up that money in money form and get a pencil or a piece of gum or something, whatever a quarter will buy. And it looks nothing like it did. That's transformation, not change. A butterfly is not just a better caterpillar. It's completely different. And so when we talk about changing, then we're focusing backward and we're saying, I don't like this and I don't want this. Instead of saying, I'm going to be the best father in the world, regardless of what's happened in the past, regardless of what I've been being. Because if you're like me, and like Linda, we're recovering perfectionists. And we tend to look back and go, well, that was bad, and I messed that up. And then we don't really take a new us into the future. We drag the same old us into the future. Instead of saying, today I'm making a decision, right? I'm deciding, I'm cutting it off, I'm not doing that, and I'm going to do X. And when I do X, I'm going to mess up. Because I will. I've never been there before. That's brand new. And if I'm not willing to mess up, how do we learn? How did you ever learn the lessons you learned in your life? You didn't learn them by succeeding. Nobody succeeds. This is what Gary Keller says. Nobody succeeds their way to success. You always fail your way to success. So just consider that that's a possibility. Transformation looks forward. And if Rick is saying now, he didn't even tell you what he does for a living. We don't even know what his profession was. Why was he flying that day? We don't know. He's saying, I want to be the best dad ever. Okay, so that's different. And it's not even different, it's brand new. You know, I don't have kids. That's not my calling, and that's not what I will do. But I consider the work I do in transforming ideas and thoughts kind of like having kids. You know, I want to go forward and help people be the best they can be. So for you, what are the things that you can't not do? You're compelled to do that. And when you go forward learning what Rick has taught us or told us, you have an opportunity on page 11 to think about that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to come up with, and by the way, when you notice the language in this, he talks about change. That's why I'm telling you this is Jody, not the manual. So when he says, how would you change? I would say transform, because that's how I look at things. He will say a couple of other words, or they will, in the course that I might throw a different twist on, and it's totally up to you to decide. how you want to see that. But it says, how would you change? What would you do that you are waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever? And I'll give you a few minutes to fill those things, those 3 lines out, because this will be foundational for the rest of the day. And this could certainly be personal, and it could also be your business. What are you doing in your business that is going to go on ahead of you, or behind you, or because of you? You know, I'm thinking what you said, Lisa, about building this team, or building these people, and allowing them to have a career they love. That's a pretty big deal. You know, working with buyers and sellers who have an opportunity to make memories in their homes. You guys do that. That's a pretty big deal. So go ahead.